Welcome to the ABS Clearinghouse question and answer webinar. This time around, in the 5th webinar, we're going to talk about community protocols and customary laws. And before we start with the substance, and while waiting for some more participants to join, we can just do a quick round of introduction of the presenters, my colleagues, who you will see on screen today. So I'm going to start with myself. My name is Regina. I work as a program assistant at the Secretariat of the Convention, supporting the ABS unit. So maybe now I give the floor to Matt.
Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Matthew Diaz. I'm a program officer in the ABS unit, responsible for the ABS Clearinghouse. Thanks. Maybe I can pass it over to Beatrice.
Okay, this is like a ball game. I'm Beatriz Gomez. I work also on the ABS unit, working more on national reports and assessment and review and monitoring implementation in general. And yeah, I will be also helping you today with the customary laws and community protocols. Okay, now I threw the ball to Capac.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Beatriz. Really pleased to be here. My name is Capac Conde. I'm the Associate Program Officer for the Traditional Knowledge Unit. And yes, let me send it to Charlotte.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Charlotte Germain-Aubry, and I'm the Program Management Officer on DSI, Digital Sequence Information. And now to Alexandra.
Good morning, everyone. I'm also in the ABS unit. We might have spoken by email. If you have any questions, usually I'm the one to reply. Have a good webinar.
Good morning. I am Tokona Shikongo, and I'm heading the ABS unit. And welcome to you all. Looking forward to your questions. Thank you. Over to you, Regina.
Yes, so we still only have 15 attendees so far. So maybe I'm going to still start slowly talking just about the background of the webinar before we dive into the substance, just to give you an overview generally how the webinars work. So the agenda for the webinar, it's 1 hour. We have a quick overview at the beginning, and then we answer your questions for about 45 minutes. We have received your questions when you registered for the meeting, and we group them in clusters and we'll answer them according to the clusters. After each, for each cluster, a summary will be provided in Spanish. So please, the Spanish-speaking people, bear with us. We'll do always a quick part first in English and then move to Spanish. And we also wanted to offer, if there is a need for a more detailed presentation afterwards in Spanish, we can schedule a new appointment and repeat the webinar in Spanish if there is a big demand. And if we have more time in the end, we can do more questions, take your questions from the chat. So yeah, this is a monthly webinar. It's the 5th webinar. Every month we have a different topic, and yeah, you ask your question, and we do try to answer. So the idea behind this is that there is a knowledge base on the ABS Clearinghouse, which I'm going to present you when I present the ABS Clearinghouse. And we want to populate it with more information. So the questions you're asking here will be added there with the answers we are providing here. Or if we don't know the answers, we're going to try to find the answers. But yeah, so basically, everything you're asking will be in the end visible in the ABS Clearinghouse. Finally, just about the registration, to give you a quick overview, as of last night, we had 64 people registered. Overnight, there were some additions, so it's 75, but the numbers here reflect the breakdown for the 64 people. So we had 19 people that did not ask any questions, so they just wanted to get information, which is great. But yeah, next time, the more questions, the better for us. And yeah, we have a good representation. All regions are covered. And yeah, a big chunk from GRULAC this time, which we're very happy about. Yes, and well, next time, if you have any questions about the ABS Clearinghouse, you can always try the knowledge base first. All right, let's see. So before we delve, I think, yeah, right now we have about 18 participants. Matt, you think I should continue or wait a little?
I think you should continue. Yeah, let's start.
Okay, perfect. So the first cluster of questions relates to finding, or Bea, you want to repeat this in Spanish or only the substance part? Sorry.
No, I think the substance part.
The substance,
okay,
yeah, perfect.
Regina.
All right, so the first cluster of questions relates to finding and publishing information on the ABS Clearinghouse. And for this, I'm actually going to walk you through how to do this directly on the ABS Clearinghouse. But first, I'm going to read you a couple of the questions so you know exactly what we're talking about. So it's about how and where can I find the information on community protocols and customary laws? Are they associated with a country page? Who can publish community protocols? How to publish community protocols? And what are the elements to be considered when publishing community protocols? So for this, I'm gonna move to the ABS Clearinghouse. Voila. So this is the start page of the ABS Clearinghouse. You see the address up here, but if you need it, we'll happily send it to you. So when you get here, there are several ways to find information, but one of the easiest way is if you click on search and then records, it brings you to a page where you can find all types of different records. So we have what we call the national records, which are records published by governments, and reference records, which are essentially records that anyone can publish. So customary law, community protocols and customary laws can be published as reference records. So you could click at record type and scroll down to the reference records, and you have a category here, which is community protocols, procedures, and customary laws. So you click it, and when you scroll down further, all of the ones that are existing in the ABS Clearinghouse will be visible here. So now we have 33 of them. And if you would like to open one, you just click on the record, and it brings you to a page where you can find information on the record, on the like about who published it, what's the title, and then the document, the actual document. Access to the resource is available here. If you click it, it opens up. So I'm just going to show you quickly that this is actually working, and then you have access to the document right away. The other way, so reference records are published, for example, by indigenous peoples and local communities, but technically any individual could publish one. But normally the community or the indigenous peoples who developed one of those, they would be the ones publishing this kind of document that they developed. So the other way is a national record, published the community protocols as a national record, which means they would be part of a of measures, of legislative, administrative, or policy measures. So to see what is published in this sense, we would go to the category national records and then choose the legislative, administrative, and policy measures. We can scroll down again and we see there are 357 of those measures. However, we only want to see the customary laws. So there is a type of documentation or measure where you can choose exactly the two things that we're looking for. So I click apply and it filters and oh wow, there are no records. So actually there are no governments that published customary laws. So this means that even though maybe in some countries indigenous peoples and local communities have developed those. They have not been included in the government, in the national legislation to be part of the ABS regime, and they haven't been published by the publishing authority or ABS national focal point. If they were to be, they would be visible here. So now I just want to show you another example while we're here at the ABS Clearinghouse. If you could also go on like if they were to be visible on the country profile, this is the way to go. You can click country profile, and I selected Bhutan because Bhutan has a lot of things published. So here you can see all the things that have published. And I'm mentioning Bhutan because they indicated in their interim national report that within their national system at national level, the national focal point is actually required to obtain prior informed consent from local communities prior to granting access to a genetic resource. So in this sense, so if someone contacts Bhutan and they want to access this genetic resource that's associated to traditional knowledge, the national focal point would reach out to the local communities to get the prior informed consent. So this is something that Bhutan could actually publish here. And if you go on the part where we can see all their measures, they have a lot of measures relating to ABS, but nothing really on those procedures. So this is something they could definitely add here, and it would make sense for everyone to know. So Bhutan has it, they just haven't actually like published it. Okay, so now I'm gonna go back to my presentation to show you just a quick overview again on the type of records, who can publish them, and voila. So there's, as I said, the community protocols and customary laws can be published as national record, and they would be endorsed by the indigenous peoples and local communities, but published by the publishing authority through the ABS national focal point. And the other option is the reference record that would be published directly by the indigenous peoples and local communities. Sorry. And yeah. All this type of information is useful for the users of genetic resources to understand and better respect community procedures. And yeah, voila. So maybe I'm gonna hand the floor to Bea. If I didn't miss anything, you could give a quick overview in Spanish.
Yes, maybe I just going to add like something in English, and after I explain again. Important to publish this information and have it in the ABS Clearinghouse is because actually users, if they want to access traditional knowledge and or genetic resources from a community, they might have difficulties actually finding where is the community protocol or the customary laws. So it's like maybe they are lost in a website at a national level. So having it published in the ABS Clearinghouse makes it easier for a user that is looking for having not a very difficult time accessing the traditional knowledge and respecting the rights of indigenous peoples and local communities. They go to the clearinghouse, they find which communities want to participate of the ABS system and wants to actually engage with a user, because when you develop a community protocol or and make it available in the ABS Clearinghouse, you're almost saying, I want to be part of this ABS. And this is a sign that users can also interpret of like, okay, let's go to engage with this community because they have done the preparatory work to show users go about access to traditional knowledge and respecting the rights and the customary laws. So that that's why it's important that I'm to publish the information in the clearinghouse and own it. Now just a brief summary in Spanish. Let's see, I have to change my mind. Básicamente, el centro de información de ABS, las comunidades indígenas y las comunidades locales pueden publicar la información relativa a los protocolos comunitarios y las leyes constitucionarias. Para hacer eso, no se necesita, solo hay que abrir una cuenta en el CBD y publicar la información directamente como records de referencia. Por cierto, el centro de información, el ABS Clearinghouse, que voy a decir en inglés, está traducido al español, así que no hay tampoco problemas de traducción. Puedes poner la página web, lo pones todo en español y está más o menos todo traducido, sobre todo para incluir la información. Es también lo que mi compañera Reina estaba explicando, es que hay dos formas de reflejarlos en el clearinghouse. Uno, como los indígenas, grupos indígenas y comunidades locales, ponerlos como récord de referencia, o a nivel nacional lo publicaría el punto focal nacional o la autoridad publicadora como parte del sistema nacional de ABS. Eso tiene unas connotaciones un poco más como que está apoyado por el país. De alguna forma forma parte, eso diría que, que los protocolos comunitarios o los derechos consuetudinarios son parte del sistema nacional de ABS. Entonces hay dos vías de encontrarlo y de publicarlo. Y que publicar esta información es muy importante para que los usuarios sepan cómo acceder a los recursos genéticos, al conocimiento tradicional asociado, de una forma que respete los derechos consuetudinarios y de acuerdo a los criterios y a las normas que haya puesto la comunidad y que sigan los procedimientos adecuados. Entonces, poniéndolo en el ABS Clearinghouse, el usuario siempre puede ir allí a mirar qué comunidades quieren participar del sistema de ABS y que están dispuestos a entrar más en negociaciones o a participar, básicamente, porque no todas las comunidades que no quieren participar de ABS también están en el derecho. O sea, que es una forma de decirlo. De decir que estoy como listo para hacer acuerdos de ABS. Y esto más o menos sería el resumen rápido en español. Así
Okay,
que paso de vuelta.
You got it. So I realized I didn't show you yet how to publish information. So I'm going to go back to the ABS Clearinghouse quickly. So if you want to publish a record of community protocols or customary laws, you would go to submit. You have to create an account. I forgot to mention this, but once you log in, like you go to the ABS Clearinghouse, it's going to request to create an account. And if you want to add a record, you click on the submit button and it will bring you to the screen. So if you were to be a local community, indigenous peoples or local communities, you would publish it as a reference record. And there is the common format for community protocols and procedures and customary laws is this one. You would click on the plus and you see add a new record. You click and it brings you to the form. I'm not going to go in detail through the form. If you ever need help with this, you can reach out to us. We'll be very happy to support you. But all the fields that you have to fill out, the mandatory are with the rest asterisks. And here you can add the actual resource and provide all kinds of different keywords and search information. Yes, if you were to be a publishing authority, if you are an ABS national focal point and you want your publishing authority to publish the record as to become part of your country profile page, you'd have to publish it as a national record under the measures, legislative, administrative, and policy measures. Same thing, you add new record. Just here, once you get to the form, to the common format, you'd have to choose in the right place that it's a community protocol, procedures, or customary laws. So these are the two buttons that are important in that sense. Okay, so this I forgot, and yeah, same. This can be done in all 6 UN languages, and if you need support, we're happy to assist. Just send us an email, and yeah, we're there to help. Okay, now I'm going back to the presentation. So other questions related to the ABS Clearinghouse are if IPLCs can directly make requests to the ABS Clearinghouse on items to be added. This was already answered before, but just to emphasize on this, we strongly encourage indigenous peoples and local communities to share information on access to traditional knowledge associated with genetic resources, such as the community protocols and customary laws. And as Bea already said, the importance is that information that is relevant for their communities and for people to understand and respect their communities and values, this is the place where they can find this information. So there is a lot of benefits for indigenous peoples and local communities to publish this information. The ABS Clearinghouse is like a one-stop shop where everyone can find everything related to this issue. So this is the place where this information should actually go. So if people are concerned that they're giving out information that should not be known, I mean, this type of information then shouldn't be included in the document. But ideally, everything that is relevant for users of genetic resources to respect community rules and regulation, this is where it should go. And if we're happy, like it's encouraged also that these documents are published in indigenous languages. So yeah, I answered the question about the benefits. And if, of course, the information is published by the publishing authority and the ABS National Focal Point, the indigenous peoples and local communities have to endorse this step of publishing their community protocols. Yes, so generally speaking, so there is another question at the bottom. Generally speaking, do indigenous peoples and local communities, they ignore the existence of the ABS Clearinghouse? How can we overcome this gap? Well, that's a very good question. Why do you think this is the case, and what do you think we can do about this? Because we are hoping for a very good participation of indigenous peoples and local communities. And this is why, for example, we're doing this webinar. We're trying to raise awareness on this issue. And yeah, we're always available to provide on-demand trainings in different languages. So if you have any other ideas on what we could do to overcome this gap, please publish your ideas, post your ideas in the chat, and reach out to us. We're very happy to address this. Bea, your turn for Spanish.
I think more or less I am the course, more or less is kind of covered. Pero bueno, repetir que nosotros que estamos dispuestos, o sea, los grupos de comunidades locales pueden participar en el ABS Clearinghouse publicando información, mirando la información que hay. Hay una pregunta sobre por qué se ignoran la existencia del ABS Clearinghouse. Pues nosotros os volvemos la pregunta a vosotros, pues decidnos cómo podemos ayudaros para que esto no sea así, porque bueno, es una función que puede ayudar a todo el mundo a mejorar el sistema de ABS y que realmente haya beneficios que vuelvan a las comunidades. Y lo dicho también, toda la publicación de información sobre comunidades, sobre protocolos comunitarios y derechos constitucionarios tiene que ser con el consentimiento de las comunidades. Publicando esta información en el protocolo comunitario no divulgas información o secreta, no debería de haber información sobre conocimientos tradicionales allí, simplemente de cómo ayudar a los usuarios e incluso a los países a entender el sistema nacional. Y con eso yo creo que más o menos.
Okay, so now we're jumping to the next slide, which is summarizes general questions about community protocols and customary laws. And I think this was answered by Kapak, if I remember correctly.
Yes. Hello, good morning, everyone. Let me try to answer the questions. So the first one addressed the general information about the Nagoya Protocol and the role of community protocols and customary laws. So maybe just a step back in regards to what are the safeguards established by the Nagoya Protocol for accessing traditional knowledge associated with genetic resources. So as we know, Article 7 of the Nagoya Protocol talks about the safeguards that party or measure that parties need to ensure for accessing traditional knowledge associated with genetic resources. These mainly involve the prior informed consent or approval or involvement and mutual agreed terms. So in order to ensure those safeguards and to also ensure that the access of traditional knowledge be made in a fair and transparent way, paragraph 1 of the Article 12 of the Nagoya Protocol established how request that the domestic laws that parties are going to put in place take into consideration customary law and community protocols. So why this is important, and there are several reasons why community protocols and customary laws are important. Among those is that these laws already provide protection at the local level, how to preserve, how to innovate traditional knowledge, how to transfer to future generation, how to transmit the knowledge, which these rules and practices were already in place prior to the adoption of the Nagoya Protocol. What the Nagoya Protocol is to acknowledge that these rules and procedures are already there, and parties should take it into consideration when they developed their ABS rules in regards to traditional knowledge and traditional knowledge associated to genetic resources. Another important reason why that is important is that many of these rules already take into consideration the nature of traditional knowledge, and one example of this is, for instance, how this traditional knowledge would, let's say, evolve or innovate. Of course, these protocols, once they are developed, they will establish a clear and lawful access to traditional knowledge, making for users more clear how they should engage with at the local level when they wish to access this knowledge, and from also emphasize the local participation and empowerment of indigenous people. We have seen several examples in which they develop the community protocols, but to address for ABSCH's purposes. But the fact that they could gather and put this together in paper, it's definitely helps them to empower them. And also, while these are specifically addressed to ABS, of course, they could then use for the different matters that the community would face. And basically, once we have this could not only again establish lawful access to this knowledge, but also foster meaningful collaboration among the users, parties, and indigenous people and local communities. So the second part of Article 12 speaks about how these community protocols and customary laws would actually speaks about how how potential users could actually access those, and the part 2 tells us that one way is to make this customary laws and community protocols available in the access and beneficiary clearinghouse. There are different examples in which this being used. But before going there, let me just also try to address the questions about. Let me switch to Spanish to also a bit address the second question, el desarrollo del consentimiento libre informado para recursos tradicionales asociados a recursos genéticos. And let me also maybe brief what I mentioned in regards to the safeguards in Spanish. Entonces, el protocolo de Nagoya lo que hace es establece estas salvaguardas para el acceso al conocimiento tradicional. Las dos más importantes están en el artículo consentimiento previo y fundamentado o participación, involucramiento y acuerdos mutuamente acordados. Y estos dos mecanismos se traducen, o la forma de cómo implementar estos dos mecanismos se traduce en el párrafo primero del artículo 12, donde se establece que cuando los estados van a desarrollar sus leyes nacionales domésticas para la implementación o para el establecimiento del ABS, tengan en consideración los derechos consuetudinarios. Solo para atender la pregunta en español, es esa relación de cómo se desarrollan ese consentimiento se refleja en cómo es que los pueblos indígenas pueden desarrollar desarrollar sus protocolos comunitarios y en la medida en que ellos puedan asegurar sus derechos consuetudinarios en estos protocolos. Y muy breve, ¿no? Porque esto es importante porque permiten la preservación e innovación a nivel local. Toman en consideración estas reglas toman en consideración la naturaleza de los conocimientos tradicionales. Un ejemplo de eso es la innovación tradicional. Crean las condiciones para ese acceso justo a esos conocimientos. Permite la participación local y empoderamiento de las comunidades, y también permite una colaboración exitosa entre los posibles usuarios, los estados parte y los pueblos indígenas. En la parte 2 del artículo 12 se invita que estos protocolos comunitarios sean publicados o subidos en el ABS Clearinghouse, justo lo que nos hablaba. Yeah, how to prevail are they? That really depends on various country to country. There are different countries that have established, and since many of them, they have recognized the customary law in their constitutional law to some extent. So there's one part, and in other parts, other countries have recognized the use of customary law and community protocols in their ABS regimes. And in relation to defining geographical scope, well, also that actually it's well, I'm assuming that this is in regards to the extent of the geographical scope of the community protocols, and that's actually it's in the hands of indigenous peoples how they want to see to the extent that they felt that their territory, well, if there is a traditional knowledge within their territory, when there is a user who would like to access to that, the rules would apply to that territory, right? Just also to mention on that regards that Article 11 of the Nagoya Protocol speaks about transborder cooperation. This is in regards to the knowledge that are across different countries. So the article calls for the cooperation among parties to allow well, cooperation in regards to with indigenous people and local communities. Y breve en español en relación de la prevalencia de los protocolos comunitarios. Eso depende de los países en países, ¿no? Hay países donde hay un reconocimiento del derecho consuetudinario a nivel constitucional o a nivel o en las normas que rigen a ABS. Y bueno, depende de cómo estas se van avanzando. En relación al alcance geográfico, eso de nuevo se refiere a los protocolos comunitarios, refiere al territorio de un pueblo indígena. En la medida que ellos puedan tener ese borde. Y nada, simplemente sobre ese punto geográfico, el artículo 11 sobre cooperación transfronteriza habla que cuando se atienden temas de pueblos indígenas, conocimientos transfronterizos, pues haya una cooperación entre los estados para atender esos temas. Yeah, let me stop there and give back to you, everything.
Thank you, Kabak. I'm going to move to the next slide for now, which is about questions regarding reference materials and documents. And yeah, we would like to present you a couple of different things that may be interesting for you. So the first one is the SEPA toolkit, including considerations for ABS. This toolkit actually talks mainly about how to develop, innovate awareness-raising strategies and to communicate about biodiversity-related issues, in particular about ABS. And it's meant as a toolkit for ABS national focal points as part of their responsibility to raise awareness on ABS issues. However, in chapter or goal 3 of this toolkit, it particularly talks about how to involve indigenous peoples and local communities and other relevant stakeholders in this process. And so within there are examples of community protocols or good resources on community protocols, as well as how to negotiate ABS agreements. So, oops, sorry, I didn't want to click there. Sorry, this is not what I wanted. Yeah, so this is just a page with the resources of the SEPA toolkit. There's a video, there's a whole toolkit from the natural justice. I'm not sure if they have templates as part of their toolkit, but they're very useful information. And on the next slide, we also have put the summary of different documents and useful guidelines that could be relevant for you. As you saw earlier, 33 community protocols are posted on the ABS Clearinghouse, and well, there is a step-by-step guide on how to submit this information also available. Bea, would you like to translate this into Spanish? Or, yeah.
Bueno, va a ser muy breve. Simplemente es para que sepáis que ¡ay, Dios mío! ¿Cómo se dice? SEPA Toolkit. Bueno, es un recurso que también está traducido en el español, que lo podéis encontrar en el vínculo que ha puesto Alexandra dentro del chat, y que tiene 2 goles que son importantes un poco para la discusión que estamos teniendo. Uno que es sobre cómo incluir discusiones con los grupos indígenas y comunidades locales. La guía está dirigida a los puntos focales nacionales o simplemente a gente trabajando en ABS. Y dentro de esa guía, pues hay también vínculos a otros recursos y metodologías sobre comunidades, sobre protocolos comunitarios y cómo desarrollarlos o cómo hacer para avanzar en el tema y tips, oh, Dios mío, para ayudar procesos comunitarios. También hay otro, el Goal 4, que habla sobre la negociación de acuerdos y de ABS, y también hay un recurso sobre cláusulas modelos. Y esto para responder un poco a las preguntas de Guillermo da Costa también en el chat, que puede ser también muy útil para los grupos indígenas y comunidades locales para entender un poco mejor son un poco guías para ayudar en las negociaciones y que pueden incluir también en los protocolos comunitarios, modelos, por ejemplo, y cláusulas modelos. Y eso sería un poco el resumen.
Great, thank you. And just to say, the SEPA toolkit is available in the 6 UN languages if ever you need another language. There are questions on the chat also, but I think we'll move on a little bit further in the presentation and in the clusters of questions that we received for now, and maybe they will be answered. If not, we'll address them at the end of the webinar. So the next slide, the next cluster of questions is about relationship with national legislation. And I think Bea was going to answer those.
Sorry, I'm having issues with changing from Spanish to English. My brain is not wired like this. So these questions are, there was many questions about how do the customary laws and the community protocols relate to domestic legislation. And this is also partially answered from the beginning, like how we do it, like the separation between what is published by IPLCs and what is published by the national focal points as part of the national country profile. So this is something that countries have to articulate, and they have to articulate this relationship also as part of an obligation under the protocol. As we were saying before, Article 12.1 says that in implementing the obligations under the protocol, under the Nagoya Protocol, parties shall take into consideration indigenous peoples and local communities, customary laws, community protocols, and procedures as applicable. And this is with respect to traditional knowledge and also, I guess, for genetic resources. So all countries need to have this discussion when they do their legislation on traditional knowledge and genetic resources of indigenous peoples and local communities, because that's an obligation under the protocol. How countries are doing it in practice, we have some information coming from the interim national report. And for example, some countries, they have other laws, like general laws, like constitution, or like other laws that are not particularly ABS, that recognize the customary laws of indigenous peoples and local communities. For example, that would be in Benin, Cameroon, Democratic Republic of Congo, and Kenya, as an example. Others have done the next step, that is recognize the customary laws as part of their ABS measures. And this would be the case of Bhutan, Ethiopia, India, Swaziland, and Peru. And also, for example, we have the case of Benin, that included in their measures the recognition of the community protocols. So there is different ways of doing this, like relationship, but it's up to countries to do that step. For example, with the interim national report, when we did the analysis, there were like 7 countries that were indicating that they were planning to address this issue when they were developing or reviewing their ABS measures. But actually, like, I mean, this is data from 2018. I would say that 7 countries planning to do that, plus the countries that I listed before, this is not enough. This is something all countries that have indigenous peoples and local communities in their territory should like think about how to do that connection and develop this relationship. Regarding the questions on compliance, do community protocols and customary laws have the same compliance obligations as national ABS legislation? No, there is a role for the ABS legislation to ensure the compliance aspect. So countries have that obligation ingrained on the Nagoya Protocol, and they have to put measures in place to make sure that the traditional knowledge and the genetic resources held by indigenous peoples and local communities is accessed with pick and mat. They also have to put measures in place to ensure that the users within their jurisdiction are complying with the measures, ABS measures regarding traditional knowledge of other countries. So there is, countries have to do some of, they are the ones that can help indigenous peoples and local communities to do more the compliance aspect by putting measures in place and actually implementing the Nagoya Protocol as it was meant to. But how we can make sure that the laws are being respected? Now, before I was putting the weight on the countries. Countries have to do their part, but indigenous peoples and local communities have to also do their part. How? Like the way that we are the way of entering into helping this process is actually putting things in writing. This is addressing Kamal Kumar, right? The question. Communities don't have to put everything in writing, all the customary laws or all the many things don't need to be in writing, but there has to be a way of bridging the gap of communication. So you reflect in paper the things that users need to know, and how also that your national government, you want to communicate with your national government. So it's a way of like, this is the things that I want you to help me with, or that you respect from when you engage with me for ABS. So this exercise is probably the way of making it clear for users and for the countries, the easiest way to ensure that your rights are respected and taken into account. And that's the thing, I'm making it available, because if they don't know, it's more difficult to comply or like to follow. You know, like when things are not clear, it's more difficult to ensure that your rights are respected and your customary laws followed, when it's something that is only on your knowledge and you cannot explain it outside the outside world. So this thing is like a two-way street. So indigenous peoples is a way of communicating and helping. Once that you put it in writing, it's more easy to engage in the decision making and developing ABS measures at national level for traditional knowledge. So you open it a way of communication with your country, and also the country need to do a full compliance with the Nagoya Protocol and make sure that the indigenous peoples and local communities' rights are protected for access to traditional knowledge and genetic resources. So both ways. For like specific questions about what are the ABS measures in place or what countries are doing, I encourage you to check also the clearinghouse, as we were saying, the ABS measures, the country profiles, but also in the interim national report, you can also look at what are the answers, how they have answered to each of the obligations of the protocol, the countries that submitted the report. So it's very useful information, like a disaggregation of all of these articles that we're saying, how countries are reporting on fulfilling that obligation. So I encourage you to consult this. Okay, this is, okay, now a summary in Spanish. La relación con, cómo se articula la relación entre las medidas nacionales y los protocolos comunitarios y derecho consuetudinario es una cosa que los países tienen que articular mejor y tienen que trabajar en hacer esa articulación más clara. El artículo 12.1 del protocolo dice que al implementar las obligaciones del protocolo, que las partes tienen que respetar y tener en consideración los derechos de los derechos consuetudinarios y comunidades, los protocolos comunitarios y procedimientos de los pueblos indígenas y comunidades locales respecto al conocimiento tradicional y los recursos genéticos. Diferentes países han hecho diferentes cosas, a veces están en las leyes nacionales como constitución a nivel general, otras veces está más a nivel de las medidas de ABS, algunos países lo han puesto dentro de las medidas de ABS, ese reconocimiento de los derechos consuetudinarios, y por ejemplo Benín también ha hecho un reconocimiento de las comunidades, de los protocolos comunitarios dentro de las medidas. Pero muchos países no han hecho todavía esta articulación, que es importante para asegurar el cumplimiento y que los derechos estén y que las comunidades indígenas y locales se beneficien de las obligaciones sobre cumplimiento que están en el protocolo al traducirlo a nivel nacional. Y yo creo que voy a dejarlo aquí porque si no hago 5 minutos. Si hay más necesidad de hacer uno en español, por favor, decidlo y miramos a ver para hacerlo una traducción completa al español, que es más fácil.
Thank you, Beatriz. So now we're moving to the next question, which is about information and databases. And this one's going to be answered by Kapak, please.
Yes,
Bueno.
I think it was Bea, but
Era yo, Regina.
yeah.
Ah, yeah. Oh, sorry. Okay.
A Capac le mandamos la siguiente.
Ah, okay, okay.
Okay. Sorry, I'm mixing all languages. So there is some questions about information repositories and information systems that we understand that this question was referring about registries of traditional knowledge that these are initiatives that some countries are taking to document the traditional knowledge as part of their access system or as part of the patent protection system. So here, for example, two examples that are the maybe known examples. The Traditional Knowledge Digital Library, that is the initiative of India, and which aims to protect the traditional medicine knowledge and also prevent misappropriation of as a patent protection. So, for example, this registry, this library of traditional knowledge is included, is available for 15 patent offices, so they can contrast the information against what is there to decline patents when there is already a prior art. So this is a case. For example, Finland, in the Sami parliament, also manages a database where they have the traditional knowledge of Sami people associated to genetic resources. And this is, everything is recorded there. So the applications to access the knowledge of the database are submitted to the competent authority, and the competent authority notifies the Sami parliament. And after, there is a mutually agreed terms negotiated between the Sami parliament and the user. That has to be approved by the competent authority. So this is how they have articulated their access system. So this is an example of database for access to traditional knowledge. These type of measures or registries are not mandatory according to the Nagoya Protocol. This can be helpful or not depending on the national circumstances. The traditional knowledge in India is somehow owned by the state, so that makes it a particular case. So not always, I mean, I would just encourage to before engaging in this effort that is cost and intensive, and like that you consult with your indigenous peoples and local communities and do a good examination. What is the purpose, why you are doing it, and making sure that the indigenous peoples and local communities agree to it, because documented traditional knowledge is not without controversy. So just, I mean, it's something that you can do. It's not necessary. Just make sure that it's appropriate for your national context before engaging. Esta pregunta es sobre, entendemos como que era para recoger información sobre la idea de hacer registros sobre conocimiento tradicional asociado a los recursos genéticos. Y algunos países han seguido esta iniciativa. Por ejemplo, estaba hablando antes de la idea de la biblioteca de conocimiento tradicional de India, que, ay Dios mío, esto traducir, que es un ejemplo pionero, por ejemplo, para contestar las patentes que usan el conocimiento tradicional asociado a la medicina tradicional india. Y este inventario, esta biblioteca registro, está disponible para las oficinas de patentes en 15 países. O sea, que es una idea, una de las ideas de cómo utilizar registros de conocimiento tradicional. Otra idea es más bien como lo ha hecho el el Parlamento Sami y Finlandia, en el que se ha documentado el conocimiento tradicional y la autoridad competente finlandesa, cuando hay un requerimiento de acceso a ese registro, lo pasa al Parlamento Sami. El Parlamento Sami es el que da el consentimiento informado y después el que negocia los contratos con el usuario antes de que la autoridad competente le dé el pase. Entonces, esto es una cosa que se puede hacer si interesa, si es de interés para el país, pero depende mucho de las circunstancias nacionales. Por ejemplo, en el caso de India, pues el conocimiento tradicional es un poco propiedad del Estado, de alguna forma, esto, y entonces, bueno, tiene hay unas características especiales para India. Entonces, yo animo a que si se quiere hacer un registro, que no es mandatorio, que se haga una buena consulta interna con las comunidades indígenas y locales, porque realmente a veces puede ser problema de conocimiento tradicional. Entonces, hay que mirar si es adecuado en este caso y cuál es el objetivo. Si es para dar el acceso, si es para temas de patentes. Buen análisis, porque es una forma costosa de manejar el conocimiento tradicional.
Thank you,
Con
Bea.
esto, I'm done. Yeah.
We have two clusters of questions left. The next one relates to intellectual property rights and mutually agreed terms. And so this one I think is for Kapak.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, briefly, I think the first three questions could be addressed through community protocols, right? In the case of the first scenario, the issue was that the knowledge was already shared. And here again, I mean, it's not a magical solution, but it definitely helps. Customary law and community protocols will actually provide the rules how that knowledge could be shared. So again, that would kind of help to solve this situation. In regards to the confidentiality and secrecy, again, it's not a magical solution, but again, customary law at the local level already provides how secret and how sacred knowledge should be managed. And again, if when indigenous people develop their community protocols, they could actually have specific sections how to address and how these rules should be covered. And the best way for users, the best way how to engage with users is actually to provide these rules going in front. Now, in regards to intellectual property rights and how enough against are about patents, well, one way to address is definitely that it won't fully address it, but what the community protocols could put actually in place is a discussion among this issue, and hopefully that if there is access, if there is an user requesting grant access to a specific knowledge, they could put this issue about intellectual property quite in front, and eventually it could be a clause in the mutual agreed terms. Just also maybe mention that while there is a different process that is actually addressing the protection for traditional knowledge within the intellectual property regime, the Nagoya Protocol and the CBD process have established several safeguards and that already provides kind of protection to traditional knowledge, while intellectual property is a different field of law. It's a different regime of protection. This cannot or this should be, or this new framework, or this new framework within intellectual property cannot go against what it was already established within the CBD process. Maybe let me switch to Spanish now. en el caso de las tres primeras soluciones o las preguntas y las situaciones, una forma para poder atender estas o esta situación de la primera es los protocolos comunitarios, ¿no? En la primera situación se describe que em, em, los herbalistas locales, la pregunta es cómo se puede proteger sus derechos de propiedad intelectual cuando esta información es secreta, pero los herbalistas ya han compartido esta información afuera de la comunidad. Y de nuevo, el derecho consuetudinario local y los protocolos comunitarios que pueden de alguna manera ya resolver ese problema, porque justamente son en esas reglas que se pueden establecer cómo es que se pueda compartir este conocimiento. En ese sentido, de nuevo, los protocolos pueden dar una respuesta. Algo que no lo mencioné en inglés era el detalle de los conocimientos tradicionales en su naturaleza es que es información, no es como un territorio indígena que se puede proteger con una barrera, digamos, o con una muralla. El problema de la información es que es intangible en ese sentido, en cuanto se va, es muy fácil de transmitirlo. En ese sentido, en esta situación sería importante tener conciencia, ¿no? de esa naturaleza de los conocimientos. No es como un territorio que uno puede ponerse de frente y decir esto de atrás es mío. El problema del conocimiento que es que uno no puede agarrarlo, digamos, es intangible. Y de nuevo, temas de confidencialidad, de conocimiento secreto o conocimiento sagrado, pueden incluirse también específicas secciones en relación a estos conocimientos en sus protocolos comunitarios. Los protocolos comunitarios en relación con las patentes o derechos de propiedad intelectual, de nuevo, si incorporan elementos de propiedad intelectual, no únicamente patentes, pero digamos en este caso patentes, puede llevar a la negociación cuando se hacen los acuerdos mutuamente acordados y pueden incluir secciones, cláusulas específicas sobre propiedad intelectual. Yeah, I stop there.
Thank you very much, Kapak. So we're coming to the last slide of questions. The first ones relate to capacity building, if there are any capacity building activities this year, and how to support best communities and other relevant stakeholders in developing their protocols. So first to say that for this year, there are no concrete capacity building measures foreseen by the Secretariat, other than what we're offering right now, the ABS Clearinghouse Q&A webinars, and of course, on-demand support for specific questions if it's needed. So how to best assist your community? In Article 12.3 of the Nagoya Protocol, it's written that actually parties shall support as appropriate the development of community protocol, like support their indigenous peoples and local communities in the development of the community protocols or the minimum requirements for mutually agreed terms, as well as module contractual clauses for benefit sharing. And so the best is you meet your community, you talk with them. The SEPA toolkit provides a lot of tools for this type of engagement. And if you're interested in examples, there are some examples from the interim national reports. For example, Benin established an organization representing the local communities. I think Bea mentioned this already, and then Bhutan also, the NFP, as I mentioned earlier, has to engage with the local communities. But I can show you afterwards quickly where you can find the interim national reports if you're interested in more details on this type of information. Regarding the second question on DSI, are there any community protocols already applying to DSI? Well, DSI is work in progress, and as we've seen, there are not many community protocols in the first place, so we don't really know the answer, but we assume that the answer is no. In November 2023, so this year, there is a working group on DSI, which will take place back-to-back with the working group on Article 8J. So there is an opportunity for the indigenous peoples and local communities to follow what's going on. And also, in decision 50.9, COP agreed that a solution for fair and equitable benefit sharing on DSI should, among many other things, take into account the rights of indigenous peoples and local communities with respect to the traditional knowledge associated with genetic resources. So that is considered in the decision. And there is a process established in decision 50.9, and in this annex there is a list of topics that will be considered, and one of them is also the role, rights, and interests of indigenous peoples and local communities, including associated traditional knowledge. So this will be discussed at the working group. And I would like to invite Charlotte if she would like to add anything to this. You can take the floor, Charlotte.
Yes, thank you, Regina. I think you covered it very well. Decision 59 gives it's quite historical in many ways. First of all, the decision to actually share the benefits coming from the use of DSI and to share it in a fair and equitable way. IPLCs are mentioned in several of the paragraphs of the decision. They are recognized as having an important role to play in the benefit sharing of from DSI. And yes, so the decision is there, but it's work in progress. Things have not been shaped yet. So the working group will work very hard at this. And IPLCs is one of the topics that will be discussed in November. So anybody who's going to the Article NJ conference is obviously welcome to participate in the discussions there, and to talk to the delegates, right, who are DSI experts who will be negotiating the next text. In terms of research and science, there are some initiatives that might be interesting. Some people are particularly thinking about biocultural and traditional labels that are starting to be applied in DSI public databases. It's only done at local levels for now, just a few pilot studies, but these things will eventually go global. And so there might be an interesting tool to keep in mind for those doing research and sequencing genetic resources and keeping them in databases. That might be a good tool to keep an eye on for later. But in terms of what we're doing, yeah, anybody who will be there in November is welcome to the DSI discussions.
Thank you, Charlotte. I don't know if you want to say 2 sentences on this, Bea, in Spanish. Keep it short. We're running late.
Yes. Bueno, en cuanto a capacitación, la Secretaría no tiene planes específicos sobre hacer capacitación en este tema más que este seminario, y que, bueno, y podemos hacer otros webinars y siempre podéis contactarnos, pero no va a haber talleres o nada algo específico. En cuanto a cómo se puede ayudar a las comunidades para hacer protocolos comunitarios, pues dentro del protocolo de Nagoya, el artículo 12.3 dice que los países tienen que apoyar el desarrollo y la implementación por parte de las comunidades locales indígenas de protocolos comunitarios, los mínimos requisitos para los contratos y cláusulas contractuales, modelos. Entonces, bueno, básicamente lo que estamos aquí es, queremos animaros a que contactéis a vuestros grupos indígenas y locales para apoyar, para que participen del sistema de ABS y crear esta comunicación entre países y comunidades indígenas y locales. En cuanto a DSI, secuencia digital, no, información. ¿Cómo es? Información de secuencias. Ay, ya me acuerdo cómo se traduce esto. Hay trabajo, o sea, ahora mismo hay un proceso que está dentro de la decisión 15.9 de la COP, en el que se incluye el conocimiento tradicional de recursos genéticos y a las comunidades indígenas y locales como partes interesadas dentro de ese proceso. Se va a tratar ese tema dentro del grupo abierto de trabajo en noviembre en Ginebra, y este grupo de trabajo es de 8J, así que os animamos a todos a participar y incluir vuestras opiniones y quería de incluir los derechos de las comunidades indígenas y locales dentro de los procesos y de los procesos de decisión dentro de DSI. Secuencias digitales. Información, Digital Sequence Information. Información de secuencias digitales.
Información digital sobre secuencias.
Ay, Dios
You
mío.
need to read the
Eso.
decision in Spanish.
No estoy acostumbrada a trabajar en español. ¿Qué vamos a hacer?
Thank you. So I'm just gonna, so this brings us to the end really of the questions. So thank you so much everyone for your contribution and listening attentively. I'm gonna show you real quick where to find the knowledge base, because I forgot to do that, and where to find the interim national reports. And then we can close this wonderful webinar. So we have to go back to the ABS Clearinghouse. So the interim national reports, you can go on search and then you will find something called the report analyzer. And here you can read what countries submitted for each question. So here, each of the articles, and we were talking about Article 12 a lot. Well, here's the model contract of causes. Where the Article 12? I can't see it.
Is the provisions related to indigenous and local communities, Article 6, 7, and 12.
Okay. There's 12. Yeah, I didn't see it. So basically you can click here and then it brings you to the question. And when you click it, you find, well, you have to click analyze. Basically now you see everything, but you can really find all the information. And if you want to look for a region or see a specific report, you can do all this here. So this is a very useful tool if you want to see countries' experience on certain issues. And finally, everything that you sent us the questions and all our answers, they will go to this knowledge base. So under help knowledge base, if you ever have any questions, you can just type your question here and it will bring you any answer that has been added to the knowledge base. So this is for this. And of course, we are already planning the next webinar, which will be in June. In the first week of June, we'll post announcement on the ABS Clearinghouse, but it should be towards the end of June. And the webinar will be on Goal C and Target 13 of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. So we're looking forward to receiving your questions and your participation in the next webinar. And yes, please reach out to us if you have any additional concerns, questions, anything. We're welcome to hear from, we're looking forward to hearing from you anytime. And yeah, this brings us to the end. Hopefully we answered everything that you were interested in. Thank you again and see you next time.